TII Item 392, May 19th, 2016, iOS 9.3.2, and Error 56.
Welcome to Today in iPhone.
I like it a lot.
Today in iPhone.
Hey, Google!
Oh yeah!
My beautiful iPhone, which I never have out of my hand and that I do everything with and has become an extension of who I am.
This episode is sponsored by Boll & Branch. Visit bollandbranch.com and use promo code TII to save 20% off your order and to get free shipping. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Rob, and this is the Today in iOS podcast. First up, I want to thank Brian for sending in the music here in the background. Brian wrote, "Hi, Rob. Here is a song called Ain't Missing You. On iOS, I use the apps Nano Studio, iMachine, Notion, and GarageBand. Most of the songs started on the iPhone or iPad and then brought over to the Mac for finishing. On the Mac, I use the app Studio One, Logic, and Notion. Find more of my music at reverbnation.com/timfate. Regards, Brian." Well, thank you, Brian, for the music. And folks, I'll put the full song at the end of the episode. Also want to thank James for sending in the artwork for today's show. James wrote the following. "Hi, Rob. Thought I would send this in. Back in November, I was out on a walk and saw this great little mushroom. I took a photo with my 6 Plus, adjusted the colors slightly with the stock photo app, and then I added II with the Over app. Regards, James from North Carolina." Well, thanks, James, for sending in the artwork. And folks, you can see James's artwork in the free TI app via the bonus button for episode 392, or at instagram.com/todayios, and also as a standalone post in the VIP section, and at facebook.com/todayios, and now also in iTunes. If you have some artwork, folks, and or music that you have created on your iOS devices that you would like to share with the audience, please email it to me at todayios@gmail.com. Please make sure to include which app or apps you use to create said artwork and or music. And I am down to just 2 songs in my queue, if that. So if you have some music that you created on an iOS device, please, please, please send it in. In this segment of How Wrong Were They?, we have the following quote, "But when it comes right down to it, the BlackBerry Storm will be the superior mobile device and represents a true iPhone killer. Here are a few reasons why. 1. It has a better camera. 2. BlackBerry set the gold standard for corporate email. 3. BlackBerry offers easy access to view and edit corporate documents. 4. The Storm's touchscreen is clickable. 5. BlackBerry is launching its own take on the App Store." Unquote. Andrew Hickey, Channel Web, 14th November 2008. Just saying. This week, we have promo codes for the app Wallpaper Machine, 2 words. Here is the written review from the dev. Quote, "Wallpaper Machine, formerly Wallpaper Creation Station, generates random wallpapers and backgrounds in just a few clicks. This version includes over 700 plus patterns to create stunning textured wallpapers." Unquote. Well, thanks to John for his written review of his app, Wallpaper Machine, and for sending in the promo codes to give away. Folks, if you would like a chance for promo codes for this app, please send an email to todayios@gmail.com and put wallpaper in the subject line. A quick reminder, if you are an app dev or an iBook author, email me if you want your app or iBook featured in the promo giveaway segment for free. We just need the 5 promo codes or more to give away. Simply email me at todayios@gmail.com. And please include a 60-second or less audio review of your app or iBook indicating you are the dev or author. Also, when you send in the promo codes, please make sure to let me know when they expire. And if you're having a problem trying to record your own little promo, remember there's the free Boss Jock Lite app, which does a great job making a recording and then emailing it out from there. We've been talking about this next one for a few weeks, and now the double dot update for iOS 9.3.2 has been released to the public. The key changes with iOS 9.3.2: squashes bug with audio problems for Bluetooth devices pairing with the SE. Squashes a bug with looking up dictionary definitions. Squashes bugs that prevented typing email addresses when using Japanese kana keyboard in Mail and Messages app. Squashes bug for voiceover users using the Alex voice where it would switch to a different voice to say punctuation. It squashes a bug that prevents MDM servers from installing custom B2B apps. And it squashes an ongoing bug with Game Center where it was unusable for some players. And on the addition side, users are able to use night shift mode while in low power mode finally. Or again, I guess it was there for a little bit of time in one of the betas. As always, do wait a week or really until the next episode of TII, that'd be episode 393, comes out before making your update, just to make sure there's no unforeseen issues. And if you are a jailbreaker, I think by now it goes without saying, hold off on updating if you want to still be a jailbreaker. In addition to iOS 9.3.2, there's also updates for watchOS 2.2.1 and tvOS 9.2.1. Again, both double dot updates on those two, and they're really all about bug squashing. But back to iOS 9.3.2 and why you should wait until the next episode to update, even for a double dot update that had 4 betas. Well, there are some reports out there now of iOS 9.3.2 bricking 9.7-inch iPad Pros, although some articles say iPad Pros in general. Either way, I'm not updating my iPad Pro anytime soon, at least not for another week. They are reporting error 56, and according to Apple support docs, this seems to be a hardware problem and recommends the following. 1, make sure that you have the latest version of iTunes. 2, check for issues with third-party security software. 3, make sure your USB cable, computer, and network are reliable. Then try twice more to restore your iPhone, iPad, or iPod. 4, if you see the error message and you can check for outdated or modified software, you should check for outdated or modified software, or you contact the Apple support. And 5, just wait to update like Rob at TII always says. I might have added that last one. So right now, if you own an iPad Pro or are jailbreaking, you really, really, really do not want to update. And for everyone else, I say be patient. Wait a week. I will say I did update my iPhone 6 Plus, and so far, no issues. As always, I do my updating where I force quit all the apps, and then I do a reset network settings, and then I do my updates, so that tends to help. I will be updating my other iOS devices that are not the iPad Pro this week as well, and we will have more on this on the next episode. Again, be patient. Wait till episode 393 comes out. But if you do update and have issues, let me know. Oh yeah, I need to cue in the music. This time it's for me. On the last episode, I said the following with regards to Apple Music deleting ripped music from a person's computer. Quote, "That's not how Apple Music works. It does not actually delete original music from your computer that you had prior to signing up." Kirk McCalleran from Macworld has a nice article going over this in detail, but long of the short, Apple Music will pull copies into the cloud and will convert them to AAC in the cloud, but it will not, repeat, not delete them from your computer. Not your originally ripped files. Yes, it will remove what it puts on from the Apple Music subscription, but that is not your original non-DRM music. Yes, the person who wrote that blog had his file somehow deleted, but it was almost certainly not Apple Music that did the deleting, unquote. Kirk was wrong. I was wrong. Because, well, Apple says, oops, sorry. Looks like a bug in iTunes might actually, be deleting users' music libraries after all. Apple confirmed to iMore that it's working on a patch to iTunes to fix the issue. Apple acknowledged that, quote, an extremely small number, unquote, of customers were having their libraries disappear without their permission. By disappear, they mean delete. Said patch is in the latest version of iTunes v12.4 that was released this week, which if you are an Apple Music user, you do want to update to ASAP. Apple also sent out 2 engineers to the house of the person that originally wrote the blog post on this to try to duplicate the issue. Of course, they couldn't. But Apple did also confirm that the deletion is a bug, not how the feature is supposed to work, like the Apple support person originally told the poster of that article. So again, yes, this was an issue with iTunes, and yes, there is a patch that's in iTunes version 12.4, and if you are an Apple Music user, you should upgrade to iTunes version 12.4. And speaking of the new version of iTunes, it is a single update, bringing iTunes again to version 12.4. But before saying what it added, if you are a podcaster, here is one thing that kind of went away, it looks like it went away, And that's the ability to right-click on an audio file. Well, this actually did go away. The ability to right-click on an audio file and convert to MP3. You can still convert to MP3. So if you are like me and you do a share to iTunes from GarageBand uncompressed and then convert to MP3 in iTunes, what you need to do now is select the IF file in your music library as before, but rather than right-clicking, now you go to the menu at the top to File, and then select Create New Version, and then select Create MP3 Version. You can still convert, it's just a little hidden. Thanks, Apple. One of the things you will see also, and you'll notice this right away, is if you manage podcasts on iTunes, is how everything looks a lot, basically completely different. But you can change it back to the old, hey, this is what I'm used to look. First thing is to change the sort by list to by name. Then under the view, select View As, then select Classic List. And the feeling of the familiar. Change, we don't need no stinking change. There are a bunch of UI changes included, including better controls to move back and forth in iTunes. Also better controls for the play and fast forward and rewind controls. They're at the upper left, and in the upper center is more info on that episode, including, finally again, episode artwork. Yes, right from the feed. So this is nice to see all of your individual artwork. Everyone that is sent in is right up there, prompt, dead center. There is an article from Johnny Evans that goes over 12 things that changed with iTunes 12.4. They include better browsing in iTunes. Up next is better. It's easier to heart something that you love, and more changes. Check out the link in the article in the show notes for episode 392. There was also some sort of glitch because on Wednesday morning, for a little while, Today in iOS was a top 5 podcast overall in Canada. So viva la Canada. There were some comments in the Google Plus community about the iTunes 12.4 release. Blair Jones wrote, quote, iTunes 12.4 on a Windows 7 menu problem. The latest update seems to have taken away or hidden, the option to show the various media tab bars. The one under menu, file view, etc. bar. Is there a way to get it back? Searching the help and Apple support just tells me how to get the menu bar to show. It is so much easier to click on a choice, music, video, apps, on a menu bar item than to open the drop-down menu or remember yet another set of keyboard shortcuts. There is such a thing as too minimalist, though Apple does not appear to share this view, unquote. I don't have a Windows machine to help out, but if someone can help Blair, give us a call, 206-666-6364. That's 206-Moondog, or send an email to todayinios@gmail.com. Gary Belts wrote the following, quote, I have an iMac running 10.11.5 and iTunes 12.4 and also don't like what they did with the podcast layout, so you are not alone, dude, unquote. Gary, good news per earlier, you can change back the look to the old look. First thing is to change the sort by list to by name. Then under the view, select View As, and then select Classic List. And you can join me in enjoying the classic old look. Those kids these days with their newfangled podcast layouts, what is the world coming to? I just want it the old way. Apple had a big press release this week. How do we know it was big? Because Tim Cook was quoted in it. Only the third time this year he was quoted in a press release. The title of the PR was, quote, Apple announces new iOS app design and development accelerator in Bengaluru, unquote. From the PR, quote, Apple today announced a new initiative to support engineering talent and accelerate growth in India's iOS developer community, unquote. And from Tim Cook, quote, India is home to one of the most vibrant and entrepreneurial iOS development communities in the world. With the opening of this new facility in Bengaluru, we are giving developers access to tools which will help them create innovative apps for customers around the world, unquote. Apple has been trying to raise market share of iPhones in India, and recently Apple's plans to bring in refurbished iPhones to India, shall we say, hit a little roadblock or brick wall or politics, whatever you want to say. And I'm sure this announcement has nothing at all to do with that. Per Bengaluru, Per the PR, it states it is the home to more tech startups than any other part of India and has over 1 million people in the city that work in the tech sector. Expect more news on this in the future, but again, it is nice to see Apple is putting more resources into India. They also just put a whole bunch of more resources into China by putting $1 billion investment into the Chinese version of Uber. So looks like Apple's out, and Tim Cook's out on a trip right now visiting the Far East and India, trying to help themselves in those two markets where recently Apple's had some political snafus, let's just call it at that. So Tim's out there throwing money around and trying to help Apple and future building up in the BRIC countries. I want to thank Boll & Branch for sponsoring this episode. The sheets for Boll & Branch are made from 100% organic cotton because organic cotton is incredibly soft, and I always know when the Boll & Branch sheets are on the bed. With Boll & Branch, you get the nicest sheets you've ever owned for about half the price of what stores and boutiques would be charging for sheets of far lower quality. I really could not believe how excited my wife was to get the new sheets and the box that came in and the individually pouches for the sheets and the pillowcases. Well, the presentation was incredible and very Apple-esque. Go to bollandbranch.com today for 20% off your entire order and use promo code TII. Again, that's bollandbranch.com with boll spelled BOLL and use promo code TII. These sheets are only sold online at bollandbranch.com. You can't buy them in any stores. That's how they keep the pricing low and free of markups. But here is the best part. Don't take my word for it. Try them out for yourself for 30 days, risk-free. Boll & Branch is so sure you're going to fall in love with their sheets that they give you 30 nights to try them out. If you don't love them for any reason, they will take them back and refund you without any hassle at all. They also have towels, and the ones I purchased for my wife are by far the best towels in the house. Plus, they have other cotton products. Go to Boll & Branch, and again, Boll is spelled BOLL, and use promo code TII for 20% off your entire order of sheets, towels, blankets, duvet covers, everything, plus free shipping to boot. And the products come beautifully packaged in their signature boxes. Again, bollandbranch.com for 20% off when you use promo code TII. Into the email bag we go. Hi, Rob. If you had to guess today, would you think the Apple Watch 2 will have the same interchangeable watch bands as the current Apple Watch? Thank you, Robin in Macomb, Michigan. Hi, Robin. I would be shocked, I tell you, if they change the connector for the watch bands. Given the cost of some of them, $690 for the Hermes cuff band, for example, they almost have to make it interchangeable from one generation to the next and so on for Apple's watches. I mean, some of the bands cost more than the Apple Watches. Does that mean they will not change it? No. It just means they should not change it and likely will not change it, at least not for quite some time to come. Right now, Apple is trying to get the Apple Watch to take off. And the bad press for selling a $500 or more watch band that could not be used on the second generation Apple Watch would really hurt them PR-wise. It would give me a lot of good fodder for the show, but it would definitely hurt Apple PR-wise. So Apple, please make sure your watch band for the Apple Watch 2 is the same as for the original Apple Watch. But folks, if you want to be prepared just in case, you might want to go out and register bandgate.com. We are now over 3,000 members on our Google Plus community and growing. Thanks to everyone that's joined, and thanks for the great posts. One new post in the Google Plus community that went up since the last episode came out was from Rachel D., who posted the following, quote, "Hi all, Downcast has become extremely crashy these days, and I was thinking of switching to another podcast app. What do you prefer and why?" Unquote. To which there were a bunch of replies. Raphael replied, quote, "I don't know about the others, but I really like Overcast because of all the options available, and I find it user-friendly. The developer continues to improve it, and playlists work well, are easy to create, and a priority to me since I'm a commuter." Unquote. I replied, Overcast or Apple's podcast app. Overcast has more features, but Apple's podcast app allows for Siri control. Craig B. said, quote, "I've been using Downcast continuously without any crashes. Have you tried deleting and reinstalling?" Unquote. Rachel replied, saying she's tried everything and it crashed a few times a day. Nick Brown put in a vote for the podcast app. Tosino also mentioned both Overcast and the podcast app. Same reasons as I mentioned, Overcast for more features and podcast app for Siri integration. Craig Lucas said, quote, Apple Podcast app for integration, podcast for a much-needed update which drops anytime soon, and Overcast cause it's epic, unquote. Barry Smitherman said, put it this way, he put in a vote for iCatcher, the only one there for iCatcher. Bob Burbiak put in a vote for Shifty Jelly's Pocket Cast. I can tell you from a stats point of view, Overcast is the number 2 app for iOS behind only the podcast app from Apple. When it comes to a consumption perspective, and is that not the best way to measure these things? Since the last episode, there were also dozens and dozens and dozens of other new posts and comments in the TI Google Plus community, which is an Android fanboys-free zone and a spammer-free zone, yet it is the most civil Google Plus community covering iOS. Folks, go to todayinos.com/community to join in, and thanks to all 3,000 plus of you already in the community and contributing. Also from the Google Plus community, where these comments per the last episode, which I always pin the last episode at the top, from Lawrence McFarland, quote, I have not yet listened to the show, but to John, who rigged up the photo, well done, unquote. And John replied, thanks. And I'll reply, thanks. And folks, remember when we release these episodes, I do send out the Google Plus message. Well, if you're subscribed to that, you'll get it, that there's a new post. But the important thing is I always pin it at the top, and that's a great place for you to leave comments as well for the show. And I always go through there and pull out the comments and read them on the next episode. From the makers of the Opera browser comes Opera VPN for iOS, which offers a completely free and unlimited VPN to iPhone and iPad users. This allows users to get around geo restrictions for online content, get past firewalls, block ads, and prevent ad tracking cookies from, tracking. For language support, the app supports English, Arabic, French, German, Indonesian, Dothraki, Japanese, Portuguese, Russian, and Spanish. And it does have a built-in ad blocker for ads in Safari, Chrome, and other apps. And again, this is free, as in zip, nada, nothing to you. Search for Opera VPN in the App Store. I love the title of this next one, and by love, I mean roll my eyes. And this one is titled Apple Watch Sales Taper Off, according to IDC. And the gist of the article, and prepare for a shocker here, Apple Watch sales dropped in the quarter after Christmas. You think? Now, how much you drop? That is 100% a guess from anyone except Apple, and Apple ain't saying. But IDC somehow has a magic ball, and it is saying that Apple sold 4.1 million Apple Watches in the fourth quarter of 2015, but only 1.5 million in Q1 of 2016. Without any real numbers to work with, IDC said Apple did sell more Apple Watches last quarter than anyone else. Oh, the fun you can have with non-existent numbers. One rumor that came out recently is that Apple will at long last be killing off the 16 too small gigabyte option and replacing it with the 32 barely enough gigabyte option for the next iPhone at the low end. Actually, the storage options would all double, and the offerings would be 32, 128, and 256 for those options. If that is the case, then I would highly recommend the 128 just right for 4K video gigabyte option. And of course, there's always the 256 I'm a new parent gigabyte option, which, if you're a new parent, you'll want to get. If this rumor is true, then all I can say is it's about time. One site had an article titled WWDC 2016 5 Probably Accurate Apple Watch 2 Predictions. The first one we mentioned before, where it will be thinner, 40% thinner. Yes, because they so nailed the battery life with the current unit. 2, it will be faster because, yes, again, nothing screams a faster processor than a thinner watch with a smaller battery. 3, it will have improved battery life because items 1 and 2 are negated by the magic fairy dust that we will mention in item 4. 4, built-in embedded SIM card. Not fairy dust. Oh well. Well, I am sure adding cellular connectivity to the thinner, faster device will help battery life a whole bunch. And 5, more models. What, so they can compete with Swatch maybe? Anyway, it is possible an Apple Watch 2 will be announced at WWDC. It's probably even probable. But the rumors of thinner, faster with cellular connection don't seem at all to fly with improved battery life. We shall see in a few weeks. Per the next-gen iPhone, additional rumors are coming out that it will have a dual camera on the back. But it'll look a lot like the current S series, except for the missing headphone jack and the dual camera. Now, the dual camera is only being shown in, quote, leaked factory designs, unquote, for the plus size, with just one camera for the non-plus size. Interesting. Another rumor of late says that production for next year iPhones are already underway, and they started earlier this year because it's more complex to build. But if the design is basically the same, you would think they would have production issues worked out by now. Maybe, just maybe, the next-gen iPhone has a lot more differences than the current leaks suggest. One other rumor with regards to the next-gen iPhone is the internal RAM will go up to 3 gigabytes. Depending on the rumor du jour, the smart connector will or will not be on the next-gen iPhone. That's where it can connect to a keyboard. And when they do have rumors about it being there, it's only for the plus size. And also the antenna bands will be gone, or at least moved to the bottom, making it look like they're gone. Into the email bag. Hi, Rob. Per the issues with CurrentC, it was inevitable. I think you called it sometime last year. Regards, Eric. And this is per the news that MCX, that runs CurrentC, has pushed out its national rollout pretty much indefinitely and is laying off 30 people and is pivoting and will focus on a partnership with banks. Eric, here is what I said the first time talking about CurrentC back on episode 326 in October 2014, just shortly after it was announced. Quote, CurrentC benefits one group, the retailers. There is no benefit for the consumers. It is not as secure and works with your checking account and is really, really convoluted to use. At the end of the day, CurrentC will not even get a C grade. It will be Current F. This will not take off. It will be a horrible failure. Unquote. When I first researched CurrentC back in 2014, it just sounded like dead man walking. Too intrusive, required too much personal info, was connected to your checking account, which is never good, and it did get hacked later on and had a bunch of personal info stolen. The only real question is, why did it take so long for them to put a stake in the heart of this horrible, horrible monster? Just a random note, but Instagram really redid the look of their app icon. Just saying. Into the email bag. Hi, Rob. Having briefly used Android phone, I'd best describe it as a burglared house. Very easy to break into, but you've absolutely no idea where anything is. It's just a depressing mess. Actually, I've been thinking for a while there should be an Android bashing segment and invite the most creative submissions, for example, bashing an Android device using a golf club or dropping a car on it, etc., etc. Regards, Alf, Sheffield, UK. Thanks, Alf, for the feedback. Back to the Google Plus community, Patrick Lim asked, quote, I have just upgraded my iCloud storage to 50 gigabytes. Can I share the storage space with my wife's iPhone or her own account? Unquote. And Sean Casey had the following reply. And ready for this one? Quote, yes, you can share the iCloud backup storage if she is signed into the iCloud account on her device with the same Apple ID that you use on yours, the one with the extra storage. She still needs to be signed into iMessage and FaceTime with her own Apple ID, but as far as iCloud is concerned, if she uses yours, then she can take advantage of the extra storage or backup storage space along with you. She will sign out of her Apple ID and her iCloud settings and sign in with your iCloud Apple ID in that location only. Be aware that doing what I suggest above will lump all your contacts together unless one of you has iCloud contacts toggled to off. There are many ways that folks keep their contacts backed up, i.e. through Google, etc. But if you both have iCloud contacts toggled on and are logged in with the same iCloud account, your contacts will be available to each of you unless one of you turns that setting off. Unquote. Thanks, Sean, for that info. This week, for a Kickstarter project, we have Pocket Tripod, the only iPhone tripod you need. Quote, a tripod that works with an Android and iPhone cases. That's Pocket Tripod is a card-sized tripod for your phone that you can adjust to any angle, unquote. This project had a goal of $6,000 and has raised over $28,000. Congrats. You have until July 4th at 10:59 p.m. Central Time to fund this one. Pricing is $18 and will ship in October. So what's so special about the Pocket Tripod? Well, it folds down flat and is the size of a credit card that you can actually fit in your wallet. The company did launch one a couple of years ago, but this time they added a special feature where you can have different adapters to meet the exact size opening you need. That $18 is for one size. Add $2 for each additional size. So $18 for one size plus $2 for each additional size adapter. They're trying to offer everything from 5.5 millimeters to 12.5 millimeters at half a millimeter increments. The idea is you pick the exact size you need for your iPhone and the case you have on it. The real beauty of this is, as they say, what good is a real expensive tripod if you don't have it with you? This goes in your wallet or your purse and is always with you. Search for Pocket Tripod, 2 words, in Kickstarter or the show notes for episode 392. Google launched Gboard for iOS, and the feedback has been pretty positive. In short, it adds search to your keyboard, regardless of the app you're in. Say you are in the Message app and you hit the Google icon in the keyboard. In the keyboard, it allows you to search without leaving the Message app. You find the answer, like the number to the school that your wife is asking you for when you're texting with her, or the address to the ice cream parlor, and you can then share it right from the keyboard. Here is some comments from our Google Plus community. Jack Reeder said, quote, I have to say, I'm loving Gboard. I deleted all the other keyboards so I could quickly switch between the stock and the Gboard. Now when I want to dictate or I want keyboard shortcuts, I tap the globe once. When I want to swipe, tap it again. The swipe menu sucked because you had to hold the button and wait for the menu. Then you could go to the next keyboard. Too slow, so I stopped using swipe. Now I can switch fast between keyboards. My ideal keyboard would be the stock keyboard with swiping, emoji, and swipe style shortcuts for punctuation. This way, I would not need a third-party app and it would be secure. One awesome feature of swipe was swiping down on the Z or M invoked the exclamation or question mark. This is another feature that greatly speeds up typing, unquote. Barry Smitherman replied, quote, I agree. Gboard is the only third-party keyboard I've liked. The built-in search is great, and if you like using emojis, Gboard has a feature that I think the stock keyboard has locked for a long time, the ability to search emojis. It even suggests emojis based on what you type. I like the built-in GIF search too. Swipe typing, or whatever they call it, is pretty nice too, unquote. And Danielle Soul said, quote, yes, swap from swipe. Emoji search is excellent, and the accuracy of swiping is way better than swipes. Now, if only it had dictation, unquote. And again, it's called Gboard, one word, and it's from Google, and it's in the iOS App Store right now. As always, folks, if you have some feedback you'd like to share with the show, whatever the comment may be, give us a call, 206-666-6364. That's 206-MOON-DOG. The number is back. It's working. Into the email bag. Hi, Rob. Brilliant. Dr. John M. And this is per an article at the Next Web titled, You Already Own the Only Apple Headphone Case You'll Ever Need, unquote. What this article is saying is when you get a new iPhone, your headphones originally come wrapped around a plastic body in this little case that you get in the box. You can simply pop that center body part out, and now you have the perfect case size for the iPhone headphones. And yes, it's pretty easy to pop out that centerpiece, which is easier to throw them in. So this way you don't have to try to rewrap it and just put it right in your pocket. So it's a nice little case. It does work well. And again, it is pretty easy to do that. The downside is when you do use the case without the center item, the headphones tend to knot up like they were in your pocket. From the Google Plus community, John Poyser said, quote, I went to order Bumpies today, and their bumpies.co domain is down because they have become utomic.com. That's utomic.com, unquote. Matthew then said, quote, as cool as those look, that is possibly the most overpriced anything I've ever seen, unquote. John said, quote, ask plus Rob Walsh what he thinks of them. Is the value of them the material or the protection, unquote. Matthew then said, quote, oh, I have heard Rob rave about them. I'd love to have a set, but they are just a bit spendy for what they are, unquote. And then I replied, the value in them is not what they are, but what they are not. I love them because it feels like my iPhone is naked, but it's not. It's protected from drops. My phone fits better in my pocket and it looks great. I've turned down more than a few cases to review because I don't want to remove them. In the last week, I've had my iPhone 6S fall out of my pocket when I open the car door and bounce out on the road in the street. I've dropped it twice on the driveway and it fell off the high counter in our kitchen. No damage at all in any of those drops, all of which, without a case, would have definitely resulted in a shattered screen, especially the one out of the car. It landed face first and then bounced away from the car. And by the way, the price on these, they're only $30, which is again a really good price for protection. And they give, and the bulk, they do not. I mean, this is what you're buying this for. It's not what it is, but what it's not. And it looks and feels like the phone is naked, but it's not naked. So you're buying a naked phone with protection for $30. That's how I look at it. Look, the iPhone is a supermodel. Why does everyone want to put a burlap bag on their supermodel? Back to the email bag. Hey, Rob, I'm planning on buying an iPhone 4, but I had a question. How much should I pay for it if the screen is shattered? And I don't know if the glass on the back is cracked or not, but I work at a phone repair place and my boss said he's going to teach me how to repair the screen, so that might not be such a big problem. But I also wanted to know if it's slow on iOS 7.1.2 and what is the most I should pay. Regards, Zach. Zach, $20. And actually, that's probably too much because you can look at what some of these places will pay you, like, Gazelle and those places that buy stuff back, and they're gonna pay less than $20 for an iPhone 4 where the screen's not shattered. A broken screen iPhone 4 is not really worth much other than for parts. Really, if you get the screen repaired, it's not a bad to have as an iPod for music and a game machine for some games. And yes, it is a good device to learn how to change a screen on, but it will take you a little bit of a time. You have to take the entire thing apart. It's one of the harder devices to change a screen on because it's built from the back down. So you actually have to completely unassemble it to repair the screen on the 4 and the 4S. Hi, Rob. Can you help me here? I have an LG HBS 900 Bluetooth device and an iPhone 6S Plus. The device is always on, so is my phone. Recently, when I have done Google searches, I can hear the Bluetooth sound as though I'm initiating a call. When I close the Google page, Bluetooth says call ended. This is extremely annoying and rather disconcerting, as this is a new problem. Also, when listening to voicemail, I'll get a string of call ended prior to the actual voicemail beginning to play. Any ideas? Thanks much. Regards, Judy. This is what I would do to troubleshoot a Bluetooth headset issue. 1, unpair, power off the headset, and repower on and repair. If that doesn't work, then 2, then force quit all apps on the iOS device, go to settings, general, reset, and yep, you guessed it, select reset network settings. Then repeat step 1, unpair, power off the headset, and repower and repair the headset. If steps 1 and steps 2 did not work, contact LG. Let us know how this goes for you. I want to thank longtime listener Craig for having me on his show this past week, Dis After Dark, which is a Disney fancast. So we talked Disney theme parks and my recent trip to Disney World, and of course, a little podcasting talk in there as well. Thanks to Craig, and folks, links in the show notes for episode 392 for Dis After Dark, or you can search for it in the podcast app or Overcast apps. And I was on their May 15th, 2016 episode. Craig, thanks again for having me on the show. Into the email bag. Hi, Rob. There's a way now to set up a soft button on your iPhone screen that replaces the home button. I just discovered it in the latest public beta of 9.3.2, but there's a very good chance it's been there for a long time. Here's how. Go to Settings, General, Accessibility. Then click Assistive Touch. Activate Assistive Touch. Click Customize Top Level Menu. Click the minus button on the bottom to reduce the set of icons to just 1. Tap the remaining icon and select Home as its function. This is useful for anyone with a temperamental home button, but I find it easier to press the soft button in most cases anyway, and less wear and tear on my device. Now you can move the soft icon down to the bottom of your screen, just above the physical home button, and it works just the same, double clicks and all. And for iPhone 6S Plus users, It also has the home button and the button on your screen in landscape mode, settings, display, zoom, standard view, which is really handy if you like to keep it docked horizontally on your desk or car mount. Regards, Rob from Boston. Well, thank you, Rob. Back to the email bag. Hi, Rob. You know, Google I.O. has them buzzing all the more, but the Google worshippers are so selfish and heck bent on Apple's misrepresentation that they just prove themselves stupid and advertise it to the entire world constantly. They try to tell us that the iPhone is no longer even a modern device and has lost its way from anything current, and push their mantra about how the iPhone doesn't do anything useful. I am visually impaired and find my iPhone incredibly functional on a daily basis. Android accessibility just goes on, being completely out of touch. It continues to exist, missing large amounts of functionality, and other functionality just doesn't work, even if it is said to be there. It only reads random web views. It doesn't work with them well, even when it does, and others, it just reports a blank screen, even in Google Now. I do not currently own an Android device, but regularly play with them just to check in and see if they are still unbelievably out of touch. One can only navigate edit boxes and have a small amount of text. Otherwise, you have to touch it, hope it doesn't crash when you do, and the best it will do is read your entire thing, maybe pages with no control over it. Does that sound functional to you? But in a bigger picture, the Google and Android worshippers seem to lust after their dream world where Google reigns supreme with no competition. They don't even see the dream of a world where Google is like the DMV and other government agencies. How is it that they really think all the rules will be different, and a world where Google rules will be a wonderful world that is all about the users? ? Regards, James M. James, please don't hold back. Tell us what you really think about the Android fanboys. Up next is our third of 4 interviews I did at Microsoft Build. This interview was done on the floor at Microsoft Build, so there's some background noise, but not as bad as the last 2. This one, there are 3 of us in the recording, and we're all using Pro headsets feeding into a Zoom H6. There has been no post-production cleanup beyond editing for tightness sake. This interview is with Jeremy Thake from Microsoft and Joshua with Android Authority and myself, and runs about 30 minutes. Thanks again goes out to Microsoft for flying me out to cover the Microsoft Build event. And without further ado, here we go. I guess this is going to be kind of an interesting, this is kind of like US, Russia, and China. I'm not going to say who's who, but we've got Microsoft, iOS, and Android in this recording. So Joshua for Android Authority.
Yep.
Myself from iOS, and Jeremy, you are from Microsoft. Can you tell us a little bit, introduce yourself, please?
Sure. So Jeremy Thake, I work in Microsoft. I've been there for 2 years. I actually work in the Office 365 development or audience marketing team. So we own, like if you think about as a consumer, Outlook, Word, PowerPoint, Excel, and then if you're consuming Office 365, think SharePoint, OneNote, Skype for Business, that kind of thing. But we also balance it with the consumer side too, so Outlook.com, Docs.com, all those kind of the goodness in the services up there as well. So yeah, it's been fun. It's been a busy week for us. We had a keynote Thursday morning, which Yin Arena did from the engineering side, did a great job up there with Chi Lu, who's the VP up there for us. And it's been a fun week.
Yeah, definitely.
And then a little over a week ago, you guys got some nice prominence on the Apple's event for Office 365. And now it's when you go and buy an iPad Pro, Office 365 is recommended accessory for the new iPad Pros.
It's great, and I think we officially came out and said, that because of the size factor, we'll honor this notion of, Office apps are free on that iPad Pro version. Obviously not the large one, but the smaller one. I'm tempted to get one, actually. I've been an iPad mini guy for a long, long time, and I've always wanted a stylus with it. It's been a no-brainer for me why they haven't done that. So, but I've not had one in my hand yet. So
it's the big one. I have the big, and it's really nice.
Have you been using it with the pencil?
Yes, I use the pencil, but I have to keep
have
reminding.
You lost it?
I have a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old, and I have to keep reminding them, that's $100 pencil.
Yeah, right.
And then my wife goes, well, why are you giving the $100 pencil
put it in the pencil sharpener?
yeah. Why are you giving the $100 pencil to the children?
Is there a bridge between, let's say, what Windows Ink is able to do on Windows machines and what the pencil has been able to do? Like, let's say for Office 365 on Apple products?
It's the same team that kind of works on the Office for the Win32 client, obviously kind of geared towards the Surface with a stylus, and then also for what's going on with the iPad and how they do that. And so they try and make the experience as like for like as possible, and there was a close relationship. Like, it was super tented when they originally announced that, and Kurt Koenigsberg, who at the time was in engineering and is now actually my CVP, was on stage kind of demonstrating that at the launch of the iPad Pro. And I think it's great, like there's discussions going on all the time. My Skip boss was just down there last week discussing a bunch of stuff with him as well. So I think people assume it's just coincidence or something that, now we got the stylus, it'll just work. But there is actually a lot of relationship chat going on with it.
Yeah, there's a lot of, it seems like Office 365 has really been kind of proliferating itself. It's been getting into a lot of places.
Whereas all our competitors have kind of started and born in the cloud, where we've come from this like server world and then had to re-architect and rescale and running in the cloud. And then the challenge we have there is that then we have two different versions of what's going on. In the last 6 months even, SharePoint Server 2016, for instance, is now kind of the same code base as what the cloud version of SharePoint Online runs on. And so as a user, the experience is the same. As an IT pro, like obviously you have to install it on-prem, but it's running in the cloud up there. And then as a developer, the API interface is exactly the same. So that side of it's been a challenge for us over the last few years, but now we're finally kind of drawing that line of going, our product's in both places, choose what you want to do.
Yeah, it was interesting because I'm using the Galaxy S7 here.
Yep.
And what I did not realize until I had to open a Word document in an email that Office is on here.
Yeah, and they're fully. I mean, we see the telemetry back end of like what the usage patterns are on a mobile versus an iPad version of it versus what we traditionally see on a desktop machine. And I was quite surprised where the Office add-ins that we talked a lot about at the keynote. Right now they don't run on the Android version of Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Outlook, but that's something that we're going to get to. They run on the iPad version. So if you have an iPad with Word on it, like the add-ins that we showed in the keynote will actually work on that iPad version, and there's no code changes at all between what you would have built the Office add-in for Windows 32 desktop version of Office compared to running on the iPad. And then as soon as the Android one it kind of works with add-ins, they'll also work there too. Yeah. So as a dev store, it's quite killer in terms of the reach you get and the download numbers of those things. It's because it's free. If you've got Office 365 or the form factor notion, people just download them. Like it's just it's nice to have it there. If someone flicks you a Word document, you can just easily open it on your phone and read a Word document. In some cases, I'd rather get my laptop out and edit a document than sit there and thumb type changes to a document. But it seems like that pattern is actually I'm not the norm, and there are a lot of people actually doing it.
A lot of people have started to go where they don't have a desktop, they don't have a laptop. I mean, that is it. Their mobile device, whether it's their their smartphone or their tablet, that's it.
Yeah. My laptop has been in my bag all morning. I've been corresponding with my coworkers using my phone.
Just on your phone. Yeah. And the other big one, I think that it's been the sleeper hit for us is OneNote. So I think Evernote did us a favor in the sense that it was a popular consumer type app, and then as we released OneNote on all those different devices, people started to see, well, this is available and it integrates with all the rest of the Microsoft world, and I've already got Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook on my device, so this is a no-brainer to do that. Yeah, it's been good to see the ecosystem grow and the usage grow, and from my perspective, because I'm kind of really honed in on owning the developer story around all this stuff, the more and more users there are with Office on an Android device or an iOS device, the better, because then developers can target those users.
So have you seen in the last couple of weeks a big uptick in people asking about the SDKs?
Yeah, I think like the Microsoft Graph we initially announced in preview, and it was originally called the Office 365 APIs, and that was really mainly around Outlook and OneDrive, so think mail, calendar, contacts, and then files. And then as we got closer to the V1, which we announced in November of last year, we internally at Microsoft had an API council And there was a lot of other engineering teams like, well, no, we want to be part of this unified API as well. So we call it the Microsoft Graph now, not Office 365 APIs, because there are some other engineering teams that are coming on board, like the health service, Microsoft Band, be able to getting that data off the graph as well. So it kind of, the one endpoint to rule them all essentially within Microsoft is the end game. So you can get out mail, calendar contacts, both from my work and school world, i.e. Office 365, or I can get that if I'm logged in as my Microsoft account, like my Outlook.com account, and get my personal world as well from one API endpoint. And we've seen a massive amount of interest in the SDKs. So there are a lot of enterprise applications being built on the iPad, iPhone, and Android devices where they need to get at that business data, whether it is files that are stored in a work organizational OneDrive account, but also for some of these personal apps as well, where they want to get into the calendar of your Outlook.com account or files of your OneDrive personal account. And so it's been really interesting to see that uptake, and those are the common scenarios, but some of the things we announced in the keynote today around the People API, for instance. If I'm in an organization, I can't remember that guy's name, or I can't remember the spelling of Thake, you could put in Fake, and it would actually go, did you mean Jeremy Thake? And it's using all that machine learning in the background to do all that stuff. So
a little bit like the Active Directory.
Yeah, so it's kind of clever that what we're seeing is a lot of the stuff that Outlook on the mobile phone does that our engineering teams use, we're making it public so any third-party dev can use it. And I think that just means that you guys can build exactly the same experiences that we can within our own Office applications.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
This is a question I always wanted to ask, like especially when Outlook and Office in general started to sort of show up and become a thing in the Android world.
Yeah.
Like, so you have obviously the enterprise people who are already inside of the Outlook ecosystem, and they probably have their Microsoft accounts and everything like that. What would you say to the people who are already very entrenched in the Google/Android side of, let's say, Gmail and all that?
Yeah.
If you wanted them to sign up for like an Outlook account or anything like that?
It's interesting. There's two folds. The Outlook mobile app, when you download it, it can actually connect. There's simple buttons, not just to connect to Office 365 mail or Outlook.com mail, but you can also connect to Gmail and the SMTP. And so we've seen a lot of people who have Gmail, and it's obviously running on Google services, but use our clients to consume email because of the way that we have smarts in the calendaring and the scheduling aspects, and the way that we do quick replies or smart inboxes at the client level, not necessarily on the server level.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, it's in our interest to try and turn people from one dark side to another dark side.
Yeah, exactly.
Get off of Gmail and come over to Outlook.com, and don't use Google Drive and use OneDrive.com. But I've
seen people double dip too.
Yeah, and so
many.
We see that common where I don't know. We definitely have the telemetry, and I'm not sure how much I can share, so I probably won't share the numbers. But it is quite amazing inside the app how many they connect to both. So they use like Outlook.com for some set of their personal life, and then Gmail for another. Now, as a Microsoftian, I've been in this ecosystem for a long, long time. I have my Outlook.com personal account is my one that my family communicate with me and my friends. But then my Gmail is if I'm ever signing up for anything, website, and all the junk mail goes into that one. So there's kind of two priorities.
So any chance you're going to have a marketer spam you out, I'll give them the Gmail.
That's right, yeah. If they're likely to be sending me an email more than once a week, then goes over to my Gmail account. But the nice thing about the Outlook mobile app is that you can access both of those things straight through it.
Yeah.
And then the benefit for that from an extensibility story is that then if I build an Outlook add-in very soon, the Outlook add-in will work on the Android phone, it'll work on the iOS phone. So,
most definitely.
Like the Starbucks demo that was in the keynote,
I remember,
where, create the meeting invite and then immediately kind of attach a Starbucks coupon to it that allows whoever the meeting organizer is to buy the coffee or so forth.
Yeah.
The ability to do that on the phone as well as do that on the Outlook desktop, whether it's a PC or a Mac, is as a developer story, is great. It's a win-win for us. So I think over time, the mail client is one example where we will win because of the Office add-ins aspect.
Yeah.
But I think with Word, PowerPoint, and Excel, it's the same kind of thing there as well.
Yeah.
You can build those extensibility hooks into those clients. But then we also have those SDKs that, sure, if someone wants to build their own mail client or what have you, they can connect into our APIs and get at our services data as well.
For sure. has there been a lot of demand for the productivity side of Office, especially in the Android world? Because tablet computing in Android is a very fickle thing.
Yeah.
For the iPad, it's pretty obvious that the iPad's made for certain tasks.
You certainly saw more of the, and that's changing a little bit with the Surface, but you see at the airports a lot more people with the iPad with portable keyboards plugged in doing their work. But and it's kind of a bit of pride from Microsoft perspective seeing that change a little bit. I saw even the Starbucks here, and maybe it's because it's this event, but you see a lot more Surface as well as Macs in the coffee shops now, whereas 5 years ago it's just been full of Apple devices. But from an Android perspective, with the productivity aspect, I guess there is that nature to follow the fact that the Google ecosystem is set around that.
Okay.
But the downloads of Office on there is significantly growing. Like the iPad one came out first. I mean, that was the first thing Satya did when he became CEO, was announce the iPad Office apps. And then the Android ones came shortly after that.
Yeah, we waited a long time for those.
Yes. And it's amazing, like when they came out, even me personally, I was like, well, I'm sure they're not going to be at the quality level of what you'd expect from our Win32 stuff, but they're solid apps.
Companies want you to use Excel. They don't want you to use numbers, and then because numbers are something funky, and if you're on an iPad and you're doing something on numbers and send it to someone who's Excel on their computer, it might not look right.
Right. And I think the nice part about it is because we're so integrated with Office 365 in the sense that it follows me. So if I'm on my work computer and I'm editing, like this week I've been living in PowerPoint, so we're editing my PowerPoint deck on my PC, see my office at work. But then I jump on a plane and open up PowerPoint on my mobile device, and I use an Android device. It immediately has the most recently used items because it's all connected up to Office 365. So I can just kind of open that deck straight away. I don't have to go remembering where I put that in my OneDrive for Business, or is it in the SharePoint team side, or it's just really usable from that aspect. And all the authentication's handled for you. Like you've signed in once to your work account, and then essentially it's just one click in and you're away. And so that for me is really, really useful. And I think more and more people that live on the go and want to be able to access things quickly and just check what slide am I doing next if I'm in a presentation is really useful to have that propped up on the table doing presentations here at Build and be able to flick through the speaker notes and so forth.
Of the people that you've been working with, do you get a chance to see any of the apps that third parties are developing using the SDKs?
Yeah, so it's been interesting. One of the big ones that we announced this week is the Skype app SDK. So what this allows is, today what you would do is you'd kind of mimic what we've done in Outlook, which is when I send a meeting invite, the Skype URL is in the email, and then you would click on the Skype URL and that would bounce you out of your Outlook experience and flip you into the Skype app. And so you've got that context switch you're doing. So MD Live, which is the keynote one with David Newman, who is actually in engineering, but he wore a doctor's jacket and a tie yesterday for the keynote session. But what they showed was this notion of you don't leave the app. So I'm looking at my doctor's notes, I'm looking at my appointments, and then I can click on the call the patient, and Skype is just essentially embedded into your native Android application or your iOS application. And so I think that will be a popular scenario, both not just for voice and video, but also from a chat perspective as well. So being able to have this notion of Skype chat embedded into your mobile application alongside the rest of whatever your mobile app is doing, I think is a really killer scenario.
Back to your Tinder app.
Yeah, pretty much.
This?
Just integrate it into Tinder.
Oh, yes, right. Just swipe right and call on Skype.
Exactly.
There you go, we should speak to those guys. Then the other, I think the big no-brainer one is files. The amount of companies, much like from an Azure platform as a service with mobile apps, app services and so forth, being able to just have a user, maybe it's an invoice that the mobile app's created and it just needs to save that file somewhere, and be able to use graph.microsoft.com, whack drive, and just dump that file straight into OneDrive. We have app folders now, which means that rather than your mobile app having to ask permissions to the entire personal user's OneDrive for Business, which is very similar to Google Drive and Box and Dropbox, essentially you can ask permissions for a container within it. So I can kind of go, I know I'm Jeremy's mobile app, and me as a user of that app, when I go to my OneDrive, I see a special folder that mobile app has created, and that's the only place it can save documents to. And so we're seeing a lot of that kind of work going on as well.
On the iOS side, obviously, if people want more information, they can go to dev.office.com/iOS.
That's right, yeah.
Any other good resources out there for the devs to know about?
So I mean, those pages, the landing pages for iOS and Android, they'll land you into like kind of, here's the links for the video training, here's the links to the code samples, but then the graph, which is the API, is where the SDKs are if you're using mobile applications. That's at graph.microsoft.io. And so that's very focused on just the graph, whereas dev.office.com kind of covers both the graph and the Office add-ins, so building for Outlook, Word, PowerPoint, Excel.
What I was noticing on the SDKs, it looked like on the Office 365 guys, you were trying to take kind of a neutral stance. If you're developing in Swift, you guys will support, and then you also have people over on Cordova. It looked like you were working with that.
Yeah, it's interesting. We did a lot of research with mobile developers to kind of understand like which ones are the important ones, and figured we could pick one or two and start with those. And then it turned out, well, actually, there's a pretty even spread across whether I'm native writing Objective-C or Swift or Java in the Android world. Those that use Cordova, those that use Xamarin. Now, with the announcements yesterday with Xamarin, with it being 3 now, if you're pretty much every SKU of Visual Studio, actually I think it was all SKUs. I think the tides may turn. You might see that, especially enterprise development space, it's very .NET heavy. Being able to write in .NET and XAML, but being able to target all 3 mobile platforms,
for sure.
It's a killer scenario. But we did see, and we reasonably focused on native Objective-C SDKs and native Java SDKs for Android, was because we saw a lot more focus on people doing that first. We saw a lot of prototyping in Cordova to get a concept working on a phone and be able to show it on every different device. But when users were working out, okay, we want the highest performing, like targeted to that particular device, they would switch over to Objective-C. And so, we had to do all of them. So we have, if you're in Cordova and you file new in Visual Studio and you want to connect to our graph, the NuGet packages are there. Much like in Xamarin, they're there as well. And then obviously we have the native pods for the Xcode, and then with Java we've got those packages as well.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I think the benefit there is the authentication is, if they've already done anything with Microsoft services, it's just Azure Active Directory. So it's just a standard OAuth authentication layer. If anyone listening has kind of tried it, the one thing we have improved is you no longer have to go into the Azure Management Portal, go and create what we call this Azure AD application to be able to get the client ID that you put into your application as a kind of a trust thing back to our service. There was some pain there in terms of having to have credit card and mobile authentication to get into that portal. Now we can just go to apps.dev.microsoft.com, you sign in with your account, and we kind of just streamline that process for you. So that was something we heard loud and clear from feedback people who have been consuming this way back when we did the preview this time last year. And so that's improved that experience for developers getting up to speed. And we've had a lot of people, because we open source them in GitHub, the Android and the iOS ones, we've had a lot of people that are consuming these, giving feedback, submitting issues in GitHub, and our engineering teams are kind of really grateful for that kind of additional level of kind of contributions from the community as well, which is cool.
Any other advice for devs out there?
I think the trick is that the core scenario is the files from a mobile app, or the mail and calendar are kind of the no-brainers. I want to get at someone's inbox, I want to get at someone's calendar for scheduling. There's a bunch of new endpoints we announced this week that are more specified scenarios. So the Find Meeting Time API was a great example that was demoed by Yina in a session this week. We had this scenario where it's an iPad app that's a property management app. We've open sourced the whole Hero demo. And the idea was that, I'm a property manager, I manage a bunch of houses, and we got some really bad tenants that have wrecked the joint, and someone goes in and with the iPad takes photos of the damage, and then all that gets stored in our Office 365 service. But then we need to schedule a repair guy to come out who happens to be an employee. We can actually use the Find Meeting Time API to go and look at when those appropriate scheduling times can be, and let that person choose on the other end. And so there's these new kind of like APIs where, look, we've given you the raw data via the mail, calendar, contacts files, but here's some smarter APIs that we use in our own mobile applications that now you guys can use as third-party developers as well. And the other big one is the Office Graph. So people that aren't Office 365 customers won't be aware of Delve, but Delve is this notion of machine learning understands that who my colleagues are based on Active Directory, who my manager is, who my peers are. It understands the documents that I work on in OneDrive and SharePoint and in email. But then it also does things like, well, it knows that I viewed PowerPoint presentations from my manager and my peers, and on the Delve board, it essentially shows you those documents and that content. And so it's really useful kind of suggesting, like, maybe you should check out this document that one of your peers is working on. And I tend to call it Stalker. It's a great way of monitoring what people are doing in the org. Like, unfortunately, I mean, it's security driven, so you can only see what you can see if you went and found it via clicking around in SharePoint or OneDrive. Yeah, it's quite useful when you go and look at a GM and see like what the latest strategic PowerPoint document is presenting to Chilu or Satcher in. And the nice part is that we now have that API available. So we have a trending around API endpoint, which allows me to say, it'll return a JSON packet of, here are all the documents trending around you as a user logged into your phone app, or are working with. So here are the users that you work with on a daily basis, whether it's collaborating with them via email. So, if I'm constantly emailing you all day long, then in the graph, you'll be up on my top of the stack for working with. And there's a lot of information you can use with that kind of graph notion as well inside mobile applications too. So I think the trick is that as we add more of these endpoints, that the intelligence that the API gives you can make you build a lot smarter applications for your users that are logged into Office 365.
Okay. It's really exciting to see where you guys as a company has been sort of like giving these olive branches out, because I never would have, even 2 years ago, never would have expected for Office to be pre-installed on a Samsung device.
Yeah, I mean, the irony I was thinking about this is Microsoft and IBM have become kind of the neutral third parties now.
Yeah, and I think it's a clever business strategy.
So I think Microsoft and IBM are kind of the federation, then you have the Borg and the Dominion on the other side, right? So if we want to bring it to geek
are you thinking
reference.
IBM or Lenovo? Are you distinguishing between the two?
Well, no, I'm talking IBM as a company. IBM as a company, is they've become more of a services company. So maybe they were the Klingons. Microsoft was the Federation, and then the Borg and the Dominion, right? So if we're going to get into real nerd references of this.
I think it's a smart move in the sense that rather than being a fixed ecosystem where we only work on our machines and our devices, like let's go after the iOS and Android markets where we know there's a bigger market share of phones.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's the only way we can win. I think in the past we may have done it, but the quality of the apps wouldn't have been as good because it's like, well, they're the Android guys. Whereas now we realize and we see the monthly active usage of the Android applications connecting to our services, that the quality of those apps has to be high, because otherwise you don't get much chance. Like if I put an app on my phone and it's crashing or it's slow or it doesn't have the feature, I'm very quick to uninstall it and will never give it a second chance and go back and have a look.
Which is why I think it's a very interesting move, because if on the Android ecosystem we're going to see a lot more Microsoft apps, which has been the case over the last, let's say, 6 to 8 months, then my question, and this is not necessarily a question for you, but it's more for the Lumia guys, like what would be the killer app for the Lumias when compared to what you can do on Android and iOS. So it's an interesting corollary there.
I mean, it used to be like the best experience would always be on our devices, but the fact now that Mac Office is out there running on MacBooks and stuff, like on my MacBook at home, I use Office on it all the time. Like Outlook is sometimes a lot faster on the Mac than it is on the PC, because the way that it's been built on top of OS X, and like kind of the user experience. I've been a Mac guy for a long time. It's just easier for me to use than when I'm in that Windows experience. And I think that's what's great, is that we kind of build it to the user's tastes. And so people do love that software, which is cool. And I think the other one from this week, which is totally outside of my realm, but I think is exciting, is having Cortana on Android and iOS. I actually breakfast with someone, and they have an iPhone 6S with Cortana on it, and it was reminding her that she had to leave for a meeting here.
Do you know what? You know how jealous Siri's going to get? She is going to be so pissed all the time.
We don't even have a name for the Android one. It's just Google.
That's right. Like it doesn't have a character name or anything, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, personally, for myself, I'm excited to see, because I'm a Windows user on the laptop/desktop side. And it's nice to be able to see the integration between what I use for Android and what I use for my laptop desktop environment. So I'm excited to see what will come up, especially with this whole Xamarin news. I think it'd be great to see some actual development from one side of the table really coming to the other.
Yeah, and I think the
which,
example...
which, to be fair, actually doesn't happen between our two ecosystems. Right. It's more Microsoft reaching out to Android rather than Apple apps coming to Android. I think only Apple Music is the only thing that came out for us, really.
With Xamarin, it's really a big boost, a boon for Android.
Yeah.
Because now developers, from what I've learned here, now developers don't have to develop for iOS first, wait for a revenue stream, and then go out and spend the money to develop for Android.
Yeah.
They can do it in Xamarin, and now they cover 3 platforms. And they can try it out on 3 places.
That definitely seems to be the pattern as well. I've just recently, in the last 3 or 4 months, switched from an iPhone to an Android. I must admit, the quality of some of the Android apps compared to what they were equivalent on the iPhone is a big difference.
Yeah.
And so I think if people start building with Cordova and Xamarin, where essentially you're writing it once and the quality is the same on each thing, I think that'll be better for users. And it's much easier to switch now. I mean, the patience of going to the store and finding all the apps and installing them, and once you've logged in, just goes to the service and grabs all the data. There are certain nuances that I miss from iOS, but I don't think you have to be as loyal to a device anymore, and I think that's why services like Office 365 are key. It doesn't really matter what phone you're on or what operating system you're on. You can connect to those services, and we have all those APIs and hooks for it.
The gap is shortening, or narrowing, whatever the term may be for gap. But the gap is getting a lot smaller now. Yeah. So I remember a few years ago, I used to think I wish I had that from iOS, or I wish I had that from Windows Phone and all that. But now it's sort of become,
they
all
just need
blending
to fix
together.
the battery problem, because as smart as a smartphone is, if it only lasts 5 hours in an event like this because you're doing so much on it, it's not that. I've got 2 extra battery packs in my bag to get through the day.
Well, it's funny you mention that, because it's April Fool's Day today.
Yeah.
We actually did an April Fool's joke where we took a phone and we hooked it up to a car battery. Just to get that battery.
Yeah, that might get me through the day.
Yeah, for sure.
Should go and hotwire that BMW.
Well, just don't have the Facebook app running.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, true. Turn off location services also.
Yeah. One of my friends actually removed it for Lent. That was their big thing. And they were saying it's amazing how much time you don't spend on your phone when you don't have Facebook on it.
Yeah.
So someone suggested the other day, I think I'll just uninstall it. Be free of the social media for a bit.
Jeremy, thank you for coming on.
No, you're welcome.
Yeah,
glad you guys had a good week at Build.
Joshua, you want to ping your show?
Oh, yeah, sure. I'm coming to you guys from the Android Authority podcast from AndroidAuthority.com. I'm, of course, Joshua Vergara, the head of production over at the YouTube channel for Android Authority, which is where some of you may actually know where I'm from. But obviously, you can find us on that podcast as well, so don't forget to subscribe if you are not subscribed already.
And I'm Rob from Today in iOS, and you can find me at todayinos.com, or just search for iOS in the iTunes podcast store, and you'll find me first result.
Do you want to plug any social media?
Yeah, dev.office.com, obviously. I do have my own personal blog, jeremythake.com, so Thake, Thake.
Okay.
A for Apple. My accent is all over the place.
Are you podcasting yet?
I do. We do have an Office 365 podcast. We're nearly at show 100.
Oh, nice.
We're up to about 45,000 listeners, so it's they're showing a bit of demand. I think everyone likes to listen to it in the commute and so forth. So that's on the iTunes store as well if you search for Office 365, and the Android stores as well. And then on Twitter, just at jthake. So, yeah.
There we go.
Thanks again to Jeremy and Joshua for coming on the show. And once more, the recording was done with pro headsets and recorded on a Zoom H6 with no cleanup on the audio. For more info, go to dev.office.com/iOS and graph.microsoft.io. And if you want an Android podcast to listen to, search for Android Authority in the iTunes store. Thanks again, gentlemen, for coming on the show. This week's Ask Siri segment, Jacoby M. says, Ask Siri, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? Thanks, Jacoby, for that suggestion. Let's give it a try. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?
Robert, you are full fair, 'tis true, but no, you're definitely the fairest one of all.
Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?
You, my friend, are the fairest of all.
Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?
Snow White, is that you?
Thanks again to Boll & Branch for sponsoring this episode. Folks, go right now to bollandbranch.com with Boll spelled B-O-L-L and use promo code TI to save 20% off the nicest sheets and cotton products you've ever owned with free shipping to boot. Before we go today, I want to remind you to send in your feedback to the show, 206-666-6364. That's 206-MOONDOG. or record your feedback and email to the show at todayinios@gmail.com. Feedback can be a question or comment per something someone said on this episode, or it can be a question or rant you have about something else, an app or product review, good or bad. As long as it's iOS related, it is welcomed. I'm always looking for new artwork to feature on the show that you've created on an iOS device. Just put some TII branding on it and send it in. And of course, we are always looking for more music created on iOS device to play on the show. I'm out of music. Please send more music. It's your show and your feedback and items are greatly desired. Also, don't forget to check out our moderated Google Plus community by going to todayinios.com/community. And finally, check out the updated TII app, which is free to you. Just search for TII in the iTunes App Store. It is the best way to consume the show and to get push notifications each time a new episode of TII is released. It's fully voiceover friendly, of course. Please go right now and download the TII app. And that, folks, is going to do it for us today. Until the next time, I'm your host, Rob, from Today in iOS, reminding you to own different. This show is hosted on Libsyn.com and part of the Wizard Media Network. If you are looking for hosting, go to Libsyn.com, that's Libsyn.com, for hosting for your podcast and for creation of your own smartphone app. The Today in iOS podcast can also be found on the free Stitcher radio app. Just search for TII.